Okay, so let's get into it. We're doing a deep dive today on, well, on something we all think we know inside and out, love.
But not in the way you might think.
Exactly. We're not talking about how it feels. We're talking about how we structure it, how we organize it.
And how we measure it.
Yeah, and why the most common metric we use, to define a successful connection might be fundamentally misreading the whole thing.
That's right. And for this deep dive, we're really focusing on one key piece of source material. It's by Jaime Hoerricks, PhD, and it's called Life Beyond the Couple, Love as Ground State.
It's a dense piece of work, but wow, it is rewarding.
It really is. It's structural theory, but it's incredibly insightful.
So our mission today is really for you, the learner. If you need a fast track to understanding these alternative frameworks for connection, this is for you. We're going to try to extract the core insights here.
And specifically why that traditional couple unit might just be the wrong lens to see love's persistence through.
And the central thesis, I mean, this is the real hook, isn't it?
It is. It sets the stage for everything. The idea is love isn't something one falls into, it's where one begins.
It's a constant, an ambient condition.
Like gravity.
I love that phrase she uses, ground state. It just flips the entire narrative on its head.
It does.
We treat love like the spectacular, a once-in-a-lifetime event, a chemical reaction that happens to us.
Right, the destination.
But Hoerricks is saying, no, it's more like atmospheric pressure. It's just there. It's the foundational condition that we start from.
And if you start defining love as a ground state, I mean, the implications are just huge.
How so?
Well, it means that love can stay real, even when it's not, current or exclusive or even contained in that neat little box of the couple.
So a relationship can end, but the love doesn't just poof, vanish.
Exactly. It doesn't vanish. It just recedes to the background. It's still there, persistent and true.
Okay, but I have to push back on that for a second. Doesn't that risk, I don't know, romanticizing failure or history?
That's a great question.
I mean, when relationships end, there's usually a reason. There's accountability, there's loss. Isn't calling it a ground state just a way to kind of sanitize that and avoid moving on?
It's a critical question, and Hoerricks gets right into it. The argument isn't about ignoring loss.
Yeah.
It's about what you're measuring.
Okay.
The failure of the structure.
Yeah.
The couple doesn't necessarily mean the failure of the underlying love connection.
Right.
But if you're only focused on the structure, you have to label everything outside it as, lesser or failed or in the past. The ground state allows us to say the structure changed, but the energy persists.
So if love isn't just trapped inside the couple, we must need new tools, new ways to see it and measure it in this persistent state. What does Hoerricks suggest?
This is the absolute key. It's the missing infrastructure in how we talk about intimacy. And Hoerricks traces three crucial concepts, or you could call them intellectual tools.
Okay.
And they allow us to recognize love that isn't in the foreground anymore. They are hold-apart relating, preserve nows, and a queer orientation towards love.
Let's break this down. Let's start with whole-to-part relating. That sounds pretty abstract. What does that actually mean?
It's basically the opposite of how we're conditioned to think. We normally use a part-to-whole lens.
Meaning?
We collect individual moments, right? Dates, holidays, arguments, agreements. And we use those little parts to build up and define the whole, which is the relationship.
And when the relationship ends?
The whole collapses and all those parts just scatter. The agreement is broken, so the relationship is broken.
Got it.
Hold-apart relating flips that on its head. It suggests the underlying connection, that ground state of shared reality or care, is the whole. It came first.
And the specific forms it takes, the couple, the friendship, those are just...
They're just the parts, transient parts of that bigger whole. So losing a part doesn't annihilate the whole. The shared history is still there, like an ambient truth.
So practically, if I have a friendship that becomes a partnership, and then later, maybe it goes back to being a friendship, this perspective lets me see the deep connection as continuous, even if the label for it, the part, changed a couple of times.
That's spot on. It gives structural integrity to connections that transform, instead of forcing us to call every single shift an end or a failure.
Which brings us to the second tool then. Preserve nows. What are those?
Okay, so a now is a moment of total mutual recognition. You know that feeling? A moment where you and someone else were just completely, truly present together.
Yeah, of course.
We think of memory as this linear story we tell ourselves. But Hoerricks frames these specific moments as preserve nows. They're like these little pockets of perfect co-presence that exist outside of time.
Like that one afternoon you laughed so hard about something stupid, or a moment of shared crisis where you were perfectly in sync.
Exactly. Those singular, almost sacred moments. And crucially, a preserved now doesn't need the entire relationship to succeed for it to stay valid.
Meaning if the relationship fails spectacularly 6 months later?
That specific now doesn't become fake in hindsight. It was real in the moment, and it stays a preserved, real unit of connection. It's evidence of the underlying ground state.
Wow. That's actually incredibly useful. It lets the truth of past moments stand on their own. The knowledge you gain is persistent, not conditional on the final outcome.
Precisely. And that takes us to the third tool, which is maybe the most challenging one conceptually, a queer orientation towards love.
Okay. So in this context, when Hoerricks uses the term queer orientation, what structural biases are we talking about?
In this analysis, the queer orientation is a deliberate refusal. It's refusing to give the most meaning or the most validity to relationships just because they check certain traditional boxes,
Like what?
like exclusivity, sexual currency, living together, being legally married, or even just duration. It's an orientation that says, I will not automatically rank the nuclear traditional couple as the superior or only legitimate form of love.
So it's about breaking down that structural bias that puts one specific part, the couple, on a pedestal above everything else.
You've got it. It makes sure that love expressed through deep friendship or chosen family or mentorship or connections that have changed form,
Is given the same weight.
the same ontological weight, yes, as love inside a conventional couple. Without this orientation, the other two tools, hold apart and preserve nows, would still just end up being measured against the gold standard of the couple.
That makes the whole argument so clear. It also explains why Horace realized this wasn't just about, poetic feelings, but hard structure. The source even mentions this started somewhere else.
But it did. The author says it arrived wearing silk rather than steel. It was first focused on just the aesthetics of memory, things like sensual residue and afterglows.
And by sensual residue, she means those lingering physical truths that stick around after a connection ends, right? The preserved touches and half-lit kitchens that you can't quite put into words.
Right. It was supposed to be about those beautiful small observations. But Hoerricks realized they were being structurally pushed to the margins.
Yeah.
They refused to just be poetic memory because they carried the weight of real current knowledge.
The problem wasn't the feeling. It was the box we tried to put the feeling in.
The container, exactly. And this gets to the central critique. The source argues we misread all knowledge about human connection when the couple is treated as the only legitimate unit of meaning.
That's the hinge point, isn't it?
It is. When we put the couple first, we draw this artificial line around what counts as real, and everything that doesn't fit, the preserved touches, the afterglows, what the author calls the quiet truths the body keeps when language is late.
All of that rich emotional data gets ignored, or it gets downgraded to just nostalgia.
And if you're forced to treat those connections as something lesser, you lose the knowledge they contain. You lose the evidence that love persists no matter the unit.
Which brings us to this fantastic example Hoerricks uses to show the difference between persistence and nostalgia.
Yes, the kettle test.
This is where the theory really comes to life. The source uses a poem by Poppy Cockburn called Naked Oyster.
And the specific lines are so immediate, they're almost brutally matter-of-fact.
I still love everyone I've loved. I think about them while the water boils.
That's that.
Most poems about past loves are so heavy, right? They analyze, they justify, they're full of ache and introspection. This poem just refuses to do any of that.
It completely resists that standard formula. Hoerricks' analysis is brilliant here. It focuses on what the poem doesn't do.
It doesn't look back with longing.
No, and it doesn't try to dress up loss as wisdom. And critically, it refuses to rank those loves by how long they lasted or why they ended.
The love is just stated as a fact, an active condition, I still love. But then immediately the attention shifts to the kettle.
That abrupt shift is everything. That is the key to the ground state. The love isn't the main event, it's the background condition.
It's mentioned with the same mundane reality as heating water for tea.
Exactly. It doesn't need to be in the foreground to be true.
Yeah.
And that is the crucial distinction.
Yeah.
This isn't nostalgia. Nostalgia foregrounds loss. It's all about the drama of what was versus what is.
But the poem just refuses that frame. It treats the persistence of love as this natural, ongoing process.
The love doesn't need validation from the poet's current life. It doesn't need justification or drama. It just is.
Yeah.
And that quiet endurance, That's the evidence of the ground state.
That gives us such a phenomenal lens to re-examine our own connections. I mean, we started this deep dive by challenging the traditional structure of love,
Like a couple.
and we've ended up with love redefined as a constant condition, like gravity, or the water boiling, not some conditional foregrounded event.
And if we connect this back to you, the learner, the source material, forces us to ask a really big question. What do we miss? What knowledge do we lose when we only measure love by its most exclusive, high-stakes outcomes?
Right. If we ignore the persistent whole because we were so fixated on whether one the couple succeeded or failed.
We lose essential knowledge about how human connection actually works across a whole lifetime.
It makes you rethink the whole emotional hierarchy we impose on things. We spend so much energy trying to maintain a part when the whole was already there, holding steady in the background all along.
The persistence of love is stated by Hoerricks as a simple fact. So if love is truly a ground state, a background condition that doesn't need ranking or justification,
Yeah.
then consider your own life. What essential knowledge or what connections are you currently treating as just background noise? Or as mere memory?
When maybe, just maybe, that they should be recognized as the enduring structural truth that's holding everything else up.